Hi chess friends, this is Sir Glenn for another chess video, and this time I'll present one of the games of my Chesscube friend. Her name is Ellen, and she is the wife of my close friend Rainier Labay. So the game starts with d4, knight f6, c4, and went to a Budapest defense. And in this opening, black sacrifices a pawn temporarily on e5 and moves to recover it on his succeeding moves. And here Ellen chooses the most solid setup, mostly preferred by many masters. And here she got a very comfortable position after castle king side and bishop g3. Now after rook f to d1, he moves in to create a target on d6 by pushing c5 and c takes d6. The queen is removed from the d file. Black moves in with queen g5, and Ellen tries to target the queenside pawns here to create a weakness or target on d6, just in case black plays c6. If in case black plays b6, then b4 c5 will have more devastating effect, as it will open more lines, not only the d file but also the b file. So after knight to e5, bishop to e4, here I don't know if this is a blunder, but the c4 pawn was given, maybe to induce the opening of the c file. So bishop takes b7, rook b8, and bishop to a6. Now the knight has to capture, threatening the rook on b1. Now I'm expecting here rook d to b1 as an answer, so that after knight to a4, queen takes c7. Somehow I think Ellen made a blunder here. Queen takes pawn immediately, but it's not so bad after all, because the d6 pawn and the a6 pawn will fall, and the bishop pair will assist the pass a pawn into promotion. So I don't think this is bad after all. After queen d8, queen takes a7, rook a8, queen b7, and rook e8. White was able to win the d6 pawn now, and here black moves queen to a5. Now h4 is given, and after rook f to b8, queen c6, rook b1 check, and the other rook went to the defense of the king. And after a strange move, rook d3, I don't see any particular reason why this move should be played other than vacating the d6 square. Actually, other moves would have been better, like rook d4, because after queen takes a3, bishop d6 will fork the queen and the rook. However, she chooses to defend it with rook to d3. And after queen e1, Ellen has to give his king some movement, escape square on g3. Her opponent will give on a check on h1. And after rook b8, which is a strange move after all, because this rook doesn't have any square to move to, so he prefers to put it on b8, so he can eliminate white's bishop pair, which was done after queen c7, queen b1. Her opponent didn't see the mate coming, so this is a checkmate game for Ellen. Kudos for Ellen. Okay, let's talk about the second game. The second game is actually we are still the white here. Ellen played d4, knight f6, c4, and his opponent went in for the very popular King's Indian defense and the classical system with e4. And after bishop g5, initiating the Averbach system, which I believe one of the specialty of his husband Rainier. Bishop to e2, c6 is one line, and after knight f3, knight b to d7, white proceeds to lock in the structure with threatening g4, anticipating black from playing the freeing move f5. So after e5, d5, and queen c7 and g4, white now will have to go to the queen side, either to stay on the center or castle on the queen side. and try to squeeze black, turn the table into him instead of black attacking on the king side. White now takes the gun and attacks the queen side himself. So after a6, threatening b5 probably, knight to e3, b5, b3, takes on d5 and takes on d5. After several exchanges here, white still was able to keep his position in balance. The knight on e3 is perfect to protect the pawn on c4 and the pawn on g4. After h6, bishop h4 and queen c5, both players continue to maneuver, and finally Rainier decides to castle on the king side. So black tries to create some play on the queen side. After rook c8, h3 and knight to a4, both players still tries to protect the target pawn on c4. After double rooks, rook b1, Rainier tries to do some counterplay by using the open b file. And after e4, bishop e2 and knight h7, black unleashes the attack on the rook on the c3. So Rainier Ellen has to move it away, double rooks in the b file. And after knight g5, she decides to exchange the knight on g5, capture the pawn on e4. And after some exchanges here I wasn't sure why her opponent did not capture the rook on b2, but instead blocked it on e5. Maybe it's a mouse slip, but I'm not really sure. If we can see it here, bishop takes b3, knight c2 most probably is the continuation. Queen to a2 would still keep the rook, so I think this is an oversight. So Ellen was able to rectify it by bringing back the rook to a1, and after queen to a2, bishop to d3, suddenly Mason feels that the rook is needed on the king side. So after queen f3, a5, rook b8, now comes the assault on the back rank, and Mason tries to resolve it by placing both of his rooks on the 8 rank. And then after some moves here, quite some maneuvering, black tries to do something with the pass pawn on the a4, pushing it down the board. However, Ellen just tries to guard it with rook to a7, queen b2, c5. This is a good move intending to fork the bishop and the queen on c4. However, as you can see, Ellen's time is running real low here, and after pawn takes, I think Ellen's time dropped. However, if we assess the position, still a very interesting fight. Knight c4 would then make it possible to capture the bishop on a3, and the pass pawn on a3 would certainly fall. And after probably queen takes a3, the c5 pawn will fall as well. This should be still an interesting fight, slightly favoring Ellen. Okay, now let's discuss game 3. This time Ellen is handling the black pieces, and the game went on with d4, c5, d5, d6, knight c3, g6, intending to put the bishop on the very active long diagonal on g7, e4, knight f3, knight f6, a4. And after castle kingside h3, white is intending to limit the scope of the light square bishop, and also plans to make or prepare the central advance e5, thus delaying the b5 counterplay of black. But here, surprisingly, as I said, the break should be either on b5 or near e6 and capturing in d5 to open the e file. Ellen plays a5, maybe intending to put a knight here on b4. However, as we will see later in the game, it doesn't accomplish much because later c3 would take the knight out of its post. So after bishop f4, preparing e5, knight a6, bishop c4, knight b4, and castle, we can clearly see that white is simply better here, since he controls more space, and the supposed to be counterplay of black on the queen side by means of b5 is gone. So here, bishop to d7, rook to e1, knight e8, e5, h5. Black can do nothing but wait, and after bishop f5, knight e4, king h7, you can clearly see that white has a good command of the center squares at will, and he can deploy, redeploy, retreat and advance his pieces as much as he wants to, while black has to sit there and wait for white to give him chances to get out of the bind. But after c3, knight a6, knight g5 check, and king g8, white is able to begin the e6 advance, tearing up black's chances of survival here. And after takes on knight, takes up with the bishop and the pawn, knight a to c7, knight g5. As you can see, black is very passive. Knight f6, knight f7, queen e8, and queen d3. Here, Ellen tries to get out of the bind by playing d5. The knight on c7 was given, and the bishop on c4 was traded in return. But she has to give up the pawn on g6. And after queen c6, bishop f4 trying to help, Ellen still feel the pressure building, so he removed the strong knight on f7. Pawn was taken, and after king f8, bishop h6, takes, and pawn 6 here. She struggled a little bit here, tried and mate on g2, but it was easily parried. And after takes, rook e2, and double rooks on the e file, black cannot survive here long enough. So after takes, and a final blunder, g5 wins the game for Ellen's opponent. Okay, so let's move on to the fourth game here with the same opponent, Subber 7. And here, she's now handling the white pieces, which I believe she's stronger when she's playing white. So she played as her husband usually plays, d4, d5, and initiate a strange move here. Might be preferring the London system. And after knight f6, she changed her mind and goes for the queen's gambit. And here, the exchange variation with black a tempo up. But here, after some certain moves, bishop d3, bishop e7, knight g2, castle kingside, Ellen was still able to get back to the lines of the crossbar pawn structure, which gives white a chance to do a minority attack on the queen side, trying to torment black with a c6 weakness on his pawn structure. But here, after pawn takes c6, surprisingly, her opponent played rook takes c6, which enables white to capture the pawn on b7, pinning the knight on d7 to the queen. And after queen d8, bishop takes knight, and some exchanges here, queen b2, queen c8, and further exchanges. We can clearly see that white is better here now, since the d4 pawn is now passed, or a queening pawn. And after knight f6, h3, rook c2, queen b5, queen c3, and knight to h5, Ellen was able to convert his advantage by attacking on the king side. So after tripling on the file, takes, and queen f5, the shattered pawn structure on the king side, and the weak pawns on f6 and e4 will certainly be against black here. After rook c1, takes an e4, and a couple of checks, her opponent resigned because he's losing. Okay, let's move on to the fifth game against a player named Samvel 2075. Let's flip the board here. Open up the game with e4. Ellen is handling the black pieces. Went on for her favorite and her husband's favorite, the Sicilian. and after d6, d4 takes initiates the dragon variation. However, here Ellen gives white an option to go for a Maroc-Subine structure with c4, which she can prevent by playing knight f6 first. But here, she goes directly for g6, giving his opponent a chance to transpose back to Maroc-Subine. But here, her opponent declined and went for the main lines: knight c3, bishop g7, bishop c4, knight f6, and castle kingside. And here, after a mutual castle and h3, this move usually prevents knight to g4, facilitating the advance of f4, f5. But here, after capture on c6 and bishop to f4, intending e5, let's see how Ellen deals with this kind of unusual play by white against the dragon. This variation of black, as I said, is what we call the dragon variation of the Sicilian defense. So after rook to b8, the bishop covers the weakness on b2 by bishop to b3, a5, and a4. And now a very strange way of developing the rook to b4, helping the knight on f6 attack the pawn on e4, and also avoiding or removing the rook from the line of the bishop f4 here in case of a possible opening of the diagonal by white playing e5. So after f3, defending, queen b6 check and king h1, Ellen starts to maneuver the knight on d7, queen d2, and now knight c5, attacking the bishop on b3. Now white has an awkward choice here of either giving up the bishop and then defending the b2 pawn, or totally giving up the b2 pawn completely, which he chooses the latter. Bishop a2, rook to b2, rook b1, and after bishop a6 takes here, her opponent blundered the knight on c3, whereas as you can see here from the past position, the knight on c3 is threatened as well as the rook on f1. So well, I can see that's not a blunder, but her opponent doesn't have any other choice rather than to give up a rook. Well, knight e2 here, I just see it now, would block the line of the attack of the bishop in a6 and save the knight on c3. Might be better. However, the bishop on a2 will fall because it removes the defense of knight c3. So anyway, her opponent chooses rook b1 instead, giving up the knight instead of the bishop or the rook. And after some exchanges, rook to b6, attacking the c6 pawn. Ellen gives it up, bishop e2, bishop b4, and now e5. And after takes here and knight takes a4, black is poised to win this game. However, after c3, as you can see, bishop a3 and rook c7, the game now reached its crucial point with white getting low on time. Bishop b2 and now bishop takes e6 is a surprising rejoinder from white, which threatens rook g7, king h8, and now maybe doing a draw here with rook g7, rook f7, drawing mechanism by using the discover check on f6 by the bishop on f6. But here, instead, Ellen went for knight takes c3, and then after bishop takes c3, bishop takes c3, and bishop takes f7. You can see that Ellen still up a bishop, so she still should win this game. Not mentioning the passed pawn on the a file, a4, king h2, bishop c4, king g3, and bishop b3, trapping the rook on the a file, doing a passive role of defending. Rook e7, g4, king g7, h4, h6, g5, and h5. Black is poised to win this game. However, both players are running very low on time with only a second difference here. And after a3 check, bishop f7, and rook a7, for some reason here, black is running lower on time here. And after rook e1, f4, and queen, and f5, for some reason, it's either Ellen lost on time or she resigned by accident, because I don't see any reason here why she should lose the game. Okay, well, that's